do you make sure that you're delivering as much impact as you possibly can through your activities? And that is what the Impact Place is all about. So the idea is very much to help you to drive as much impact as you can within your organization. Just a quick word on the NFPs, not-for-profits and non-profits, as Microsoft call them. I'm sure you're all familiar with Simon Sinek, who is very much a fan of using words that are positive rather than negative, and describing your organization by something that you're not, defining yourself by what you don't do, seems counterintuitive. So we like to use the terms for impact or for purpose to describe what are normally called not-for-profits. So just a little side note on that. So the agenda that we have for today, we have a number of people registered who've yet to join us, so hopefully some of those will arrive shortly. Oops, just move past the agenda, beg your pardon. Let's go back to the last view. So the agenda for today is obviously the quick welcome, and we'd like to do a quick round of introductions for who we have in the room, so everyone knows who's here. We'll then have a brief presentation by me about tech for social impact and what Microsoft are doing in this space to help for-purpose businesses be as effective as they can and to reduce their overheads. We'll then have the main event, which is Paul Dunn, Chairman and co-founder of B1G1, coach extraordinaire and 4 times TEDx speaker, who will be presenting Becoming Impact Driven and what the real difference is to your organization. Then we'll have some breakout rooms on the topics that you've nominated prior to joining us. Now, just on that, there are a handful of you who haven't nominated one of the topics that's most sort of close to your heart at the moment. So if you are able in the chat session over the next few minutes to just nominate one of those sessions. So there's managing risk and governance. There's fundraising aligned with social purpose. There is using VR to drive greater empathy, engagement, and inclusion. And there is manager, mentor, or coach, which hat do I wear? So if you could nominate which of those you would like to join, and then when we hit the breakout rooms, we'll know where to put you. And then we'll, after the breakout rooms, where the idea is to create a safe environment for purpose leaders and staff team members to come along and share information about what's happening in your organization that you're finding challenging. We are only inviting for-purpose team members and leaders, as well as consultants who are either participating actively or who are checking it out for their part in a future iteration of the event. So the idea is that we want people to come along and be able to troubleshoot some of the issues that you're facing at the moment, and some of the challenges that are most impacting your ability to deliver impact. So yeah, that's what we're here to try and achieve for you today. So without further ado, if we can just do a quick round of introductions, who we are and what we're here for. So I'll go first. So for those of you who don't know me, so Tristram Morgan is my name. The company is 365 Solutions Group. We are a Microsoft specialist IT services company, and our focus is very much on not-for-profits. We're passionate about helping for-purpose entities to deliver greater impact because they're providing more and more relevant services to us all. What I'm hoping to get out of today is that we all have a forum where there's a lot of information shared and some stories imparted and some learnings taken away. So, obviously to set the groundwork for a successful event for future iterations. So that's me. Who would like to nominate themselves to go next? Paul, how about you?
Oh, well, I was going to say you're going to get to hear me in about 20 minutes or so, so I might save that up until then. But why don't I point at someone? So I'm going to point at Christine and hope that she has the mic on as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Mudawanu. So I am the principal consultant for Utano Consulting. So we focus on developing high-performance teams, particularly focused on the area of diversity and inclusion. We're particularly passionate about the for-purpose sector, or working with organizations that are making a social impact, of which the not-for-profit sector is a huge factor in that space. And I'll also be facilitating one of the breakout rooms, looking at how VR can be used as a tool within your organizations to create that environment where you can have discussions about difficult topics around empathy, diversity, and inclusion.
Fantastic.
Okay,
You get to point, Christine.
Yes.
So I might point to Leonie Sanderson.
Thanks, Christine. My name's Leonie. I wear a number of hats. So I run a for-purpose company called the Aging Revolution, where we really try to challenge ageism in all sectors. I also work with a company called Equal Reality, and we're going to be talking a little bit later in Christine's session about VR and how we use VR to really improve people's empathy and shift those conversations around diversity and inclusion and start having them. That's me.
Awesome.
I should point to somebody else.
Yes, please.
I can see, I'm just going to pull up the list of participants, so bear with me and I will see. So I will go to Daniel Dobbins.
Daniel, are you there? You're muted if you are.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Daniel.
That's the line of 2020, wasn't it? You're muted, unmute.
That wasn't.
Anyway, so my name's Daniel Dobbins. I'm on the team at 365 Solutions Group and work closely with Natasha and Tristram. I'm our sales director and look after all things commercial with our customers and partners. And what interests me today for this, and why I'm a big supporter of Tristram in doing this, which is awesome, is really that giving back. It's certainly something that's pretty close to my heart and all of our teams, which sort of depicts the culture that we've got here at 365 Solutions Group. So that's me in a nutshell. And I will. Do I get to pick someone now? Do I?
You do.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Who shall I? Let's go with, can I do Paul Dunn?
Paul's
Well,
already,
you could, but I'm coming up a bit later, so find
sure,
someone
okay.
else, Daniel.
Yes, okay. I'll just go with Natasha, my colleague.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. So of
You're
course,
on mute.
I do
Actually, yes,
yeah.
that's right.
So I hope everyone can hear me well. So I work, of course, with Tristram and Daniel. So my job is primarily marketing and communication. So I help make these events. I help work with Tristram and, of course, Daniel on the sales stuff where needed. And obviously the not-for-profits is something that is important to myself. It's part of our culture. I really admire us for this, and I love meeting like-minded folks. So I'm happy to be here today. I don't have too many words to say, but yeah, I appreciate being able to be a part of this. I finger point, who do I do? Brett.
Great. So my name's Brett Perkins. I'm the principal consultant at Mallory Street Consulting. Provide independent business and strategic consulting services, advisory, act as an independent director. And today in the breakout room, I will be hosting the topic on risk and governance. And from my perspective, just try to bring obviously the experience and skills out of a commercial environment and how they can apply within the for purpose space. Looking forward to the rest of the day. Nigel.
Thanks, Brett. I'll just unmute. I'm Nigel Harris. I have my own advisory practice, working with non-profit leadership, particularly at board and executive level, in helping to understand philanthropic engagement, and also fundraising practice as an important part of the structure of revenue and engagement for many non-profit organisations. So I come off a background of having worked in the non-profit sector for close to 40 years and leading some larger organisations in that context, and now working across a range of different organisations in the sector.
All right, and who would you like to nominate to go next, please, Nigel?
Greg.
Thanks, Nigel. My name is Greg Latapi. I work at Footprints in Brisbane, which is a not-for-profit. I've been working there for 6.5 years now. I had different roles, but my current role now is productivity project officer, which is basically reviewing footprints, processes, footprint systems, looking at the viability of each program. So a very broad kind of position. And I'm just here today by curiosity. Is my first meeting, first webinar with Solution Group 365, and I'm looking forward to be here. Next. I'm not sure if I can see all the names. Have we heard about Natasha?
Yes, we've heard from Natasha,
We've
so
heard
I'll
Natasha.
I'll pick up the mantle and ask Kirsten to introduce herself.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Kirsten Hinchliffe. I'm the General Manager of People and Safety for St Vincent de Paul Society Queensland. So we've got retail and multiple of programs and services throughout the state, and have volunteer and an employee base. I'm actually sitting on today on behalf of our CEO, Kevin Mercer, who's unavailable. So yes, thank you. We'll enjoy the session.
Awesome. Who would you nominate to go next, please?
Philippa Lee.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Philippa, or Pip Lee. I'm the COO of ARCS, which is a not-for-profit educational service provider specifically to healthcare sector professionals. So it's quite specific along the lines of clinical trial research, regulatory affairs, ethics and governance. We provide career pathways and advocacy within the sector. ARCS is a national organisation with about 1,800 members. Can I suggest that we hear from Liam next?
Yes.
Thanks, Philippa. Appreciate that one. Hi, guys. I'm Liam. I'm from Ripe, one of 9 distributors within Australia for multiple vendor licenses, including Microsoft. I'm actually a part of the Ripe the Change team, which is sort of the non-profit team within Ripe that specializes within tech for social impact, and we help enable our partners to, understand the non-profit offerings from Microsoft and help them go to market and provide that information to their customers or nonprofits as well. What I want to sort of get out of today is I want to hear more about that VR, the VR things that are going on. So definitely would like to jump into that break room, definitely. And I might throw over to I think Darren. Have we heard from Darren?
No, we haven't.
No, you haven't. Hi, everyone. My name's Darren Young. I'm the Executive Advisor for Australian Red Cross, based here in Brisbane on the lands of the Yugara and Turrbal peoples. I pay my respects to the elders past and present. I'm officially a ring-in for today. The director here at Red Cross in Queensland is, I think, offered a meeting at Parliament House today and asked me to be here and be part of the meeting. So really glad to see you all, glad to see your interests in the for-purpose space and to see what you can do to kind of work collaboratively on this. So we're really happy to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. So I will nominate, because his name is not visible, Gordon, who is hiding under VMRB Treasurer.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I saw my name's not up. My name's Gordon Kreitzer. Thanks, Tristram. I'm on the committee as Treasurer for Volunteer Marine Rescue Brisbane, and we are a not-for-profit and a charity. But obviously we have a specific purpose of saving lives, search and rescue, and the boring side of it a bit, but still very welcome to some people, is towing a lot of people home that break down anywhere out on the waters. So thanks for having me along, Tristram, and the invite. In the past, we've done, in the last couple of years, a lot of work with Tristram and his team, which has really improved the volunteer time and the financial side and things like that. We've automated a lot of programs, and it's been great. We've done some great improvements there, I think, and I really appreciate Tristram's help there. So, and so this kind of meeting is good to sometimes just listen in. I like to be quiet and listen a lot, so I'll pass it back. But thanks for having me along. It's very interesting. Thanks.
Thanks very much for the plug, Gordon. You can come again. Could we hear from Melissa, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. Melissa Langton here from Accelerate. Essentially, I'm your people paracetamol, so all of those HR headaches. I love working with the for-purpose area, because this is one spot that really struggle with having some of those difficult conversations and the framework around that. So I'll actually be facilitating the manager coach mentor session, so really helping those frontline managers with when to have the right conversation. So really looking forward to meeting and listening to everyone today. And thanks very much for having me, Tristram.
Awesome, thank you. And last but by no means least, Joe, just to let you know, we're just doing a quick introduction of who we are, what we do, and what we're hoping to get out of today.
Hello, everyone. I am Joe, and I'm from Top Draft Group. And what I do is I help people find the people that they need to help build their business. I've had a fair bit of experience with social enterprise down in Melbourne, and I'm now up in Brisbane, and I can help you find the right people for the role. I believe that Melissa perhaps can help you once they're in the role a little bit more, but I help you with that first piece of locating the right type of person. I do what I call culture fit recruitment, so I find the right person for the role and help you with supporting them into that role. My particular experience in not-for-profits actually comes from social enterprises down in Brisbane, in Melbourne, as I said, and more specifically with helping youth off the streets. So if I can help anyone in any way, please reach out.
Thank you. And very briefly, Monish, you're actually just also haven't been able to speak. So just Monish is with us as an intern. I'd like to give him the opportunity to just quickly say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monish here. I'm a student intern at 365 Solutions Group, and I don't have any much words to say today. And thanks very much for having me here.
Okay, so Monish is already one of our technical gurus on Teams and has been helping us to prepare for this session. So without further ado, I'll just go through then. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself and for everyone, so we can all get an idea of who is in the room. And yeah, so what I want to talk about now is just Microsoft's mission around the for-purpose space. So their mission is very much a broad mission across the planet, which is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And how they want to do that in the for-purpose or non-profit, as they refer to it in that sector, is through technology for social impact. So you heard Liam mention it before. The Tech for Social Impact program is Microsoft's way of providing free or heavily subsidized licenses, which enables registered charities and some other for-purpose businesses that qualify to be able to get those licenses and save on some costs and continue the good work that they're doing. So just briefly, for-purpose or non-profit organizations, like every other business, they need to do more with less. That's the constant pressure that we're all under. And the challenge is to actually balance collaboration and the freedom to work from anywhere and do the work that you're doing from wherever you find yourself with security and compliance. Freedom and security are opposite things. So, you know, the more freely available you make your information, the more security measures you need to have in place. And Microsoft have the strongest story of any vendor on the market in terms of security. So that's a really important part of their offering. And it's really about, from our perspective, helping for-purpose businesses to reduce their overheads of managing systems and putting information in multiple places and performing very manual and repetitive tasks, so that you can free up time to focus on the mission, what it is that you exist for in the first place. So Microsoft 365 is obviously the flagship product from Microsoft. And it addresses all of the needs above through a cost-effective subscription-based cloud service. It's built especially for small and mid-sized businesses. It's used by enterprises globally too, but that's really where it's pitched for. It combines the productivity of Office 365, so all the usual stuff we're familiar with Word and Excel and PowerPoint, But Office 365 also has a whole bunch of applications that most people haven't heard of, and we'll cover that in a little more detail at the end of this. And it combines that with advanced security and device management capabilities to ensure that you can know who's accessing your information and under what circumstances, so you can control where that's going. And it also provides a simple administrative console to manage it all. So you can manage your communication tools like Teams and your documents through SharePoint and OneDrive. You can manage all of your tools to automate like Power Apps and Power Automate all through one single console. So it just simplifies that user management instead of having multiple places to go and manage. So that's a key part of the value proposition. So Microsoft 365 Business for non-profits, basically it allows you to get your team more productive, to increase collaboration whilst maintaining security. And the Microsoft 365 Business offer includes up to 10 donated seats for any business that qualifies, and we can help you through that process or point you to the website where you can go and check if you haven't already got notification from Microsoft that you qualify. And beyond that, it's $6.90 per additional user per month. That gives you the full suite of Microsoft applications on the desktop, which are always maintained and updated as they're renewed. There is also a free offering, which is a cloud-only solution for the app, so that you can access Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. perpetually with the latest version, but only through the cloud. But that's certainly a free offering with no limit. So there are other additional licenses outside the Microsoft 365, which is the core of what they do. So Microsoft have Dynamics 365, which for those of you who don't know is a full CRM suite. So it doesn't just manage the sort of sales and contact management of your stakeholders and customers, but it has marketing modules, it has modules for managing HR. It's an enormous suite of very powerful tools. So they have Dynamics 365 licenses, 10 free for qualifying organizations, and then $32.60 per month, where that's normally just over $90 per month. So it's a huge discount for those extra licenses. There's a new module in Dynamics called Fundraising and Engagement. This is specifically designed to help for-purpose entities manage their donors and their contributors financially. So that's a fairly new module that is free of charge, and it bolts onto Dynamics. So that's really quite exciting for the for-purpose space. The Office 365 E1s is what I was talking to you about before. They're basically free of charge, without limit. They're cloud-only applications, but they're very useful, particularly if you're extending your licenses out to volunteers and external stakeholders who aren't part of your organization entirely. Saves on costs, obviously. And then the discounted pricing on most licenses is around between 60 and 100%, obviously, if they're free. And there's also a Power Apps offering, which we'll touch on. Power Apps is a really powerful low-code solution that allows you to automate processes, integrate solutions that don't talk to each other, and achieve some excellent efficiencies within your organization. So this slide is a little busy, so I won't linger on it too long, but it's basically just demonstrating that for just a few dollars per user per month, you can get access to most of the tools that are used in the enterprise space for a fraction of the cost. So it's a very affordable way of getting people on board in your business and being highly productive. There's also, we don't have an equivalent in Australian dollars, but $3,500 in US dollars per year for Azure. Azure services allow you to host virtual machines, virtual servers. There are loads of things you can do within Azure, but it's basically a way of getting any equipment off your premises and into the cloud so that Microsoft manage the overhead of keeping it up to date and patched and so on. So the Power Apps licensing, there are 10 Power Apps per plan licenses available to qualifying entities, and the Dynamics licenses that we mentioned previously. So as I said, it's a discount of anywhere between 60 and 100% from standard license pricing. So it is very impactful, the effort that they're making to keep the costs down for those businesses to drive greater impact. So there are several elements to what every organization needs to do. You need to be efficient in your operations. And that's where Microsoft 365 really steps in. Data and insights is extremely important, because if you can't measure something, then it's very difficult to manage it. And there are all sorts of insight tools available, the flagship being Power BI, which allows you to take data from any source, be it an Excel spreadsheet or an HTML field, or pretty much anywhere that you hold data, and turn it into meaningful visualizations, so that it's far easier for us to consume data when it's visually presented than it is in columns of figures. So that's a very, very powerful tool, and has allowed us to help a number of for-purpose organizations to really understand what their cost of delivery is and how well they're performing, and benchmarking various members of staff and team members against others. Productivity and mobility, as we touched on, COVID-19's obviously accelerated the drive to working from anywhere and mobile delivery, but that's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's becoming more and more prevalent. Security and privacy are often critical. We have the personally identifiable information laws, where you have to protect that data. It's your duty of care to do so if you're holding information about your stakeholders, which is personal. And with the notifiable data breaches, which is the equivalent of Europe's GDPR legislation, it's more important than ever to protect that information. And fundraising and volunteer management just got a lot easier with the fundraising and engagement module that has recently been released. So the Tech for Social Impact program from Microsoft is very much about accelerating the impact through technology. Let you get on with the important work that you're doing at the front line, and make your systems just work better in the background. And we're one of the vehicles through which they deliver that to the for-purpose sector. It's about delivering solutions to empower social breakthroughs. So there are all sorts of incredible tools that are being released all the time. One of the latest ones is a tool called Viva, which is about measuring how your staff are feeling, as well as how they're working, so that you can manage people's mental health, and you can manage their workloads and make sure that people aren't overwhelmed, which is a really important tool that's just on the cusp of being released. They're about building a partner ecosystem globally, so that every for-purpose entity gets to access these benefits. And it's obviously about accelerating Microsoft's own philanthropic efforts. So since Satya Nadella took the helm, they really have taken this idea of inclusion and leaving no one behind to heart, to the point where they've invested countless millions in making, for example, the Microsoft PlayStation, what's it called? Xbox, the Microsoft Xbox, accessible to people with all sorts of disabilities through controllers that allow people to use different body parts to control the games. It really is important. It's a core value of theirs, and it's one of the reasons why we're such supporters, and all we do is Microsoft. We don't deal with any other vendors, and largely for that reason, that we feel they've got everything pretty well covered. So the reasons to move to the cloud, this is really not up for debate by too many people, but there are still some servers and some other equipment out there that's on premises that doesn't need to be. So cloud-based applications are here to stay. There's no question of it. Security comes standard, as does backup. You know, if you lose your device, you don't lose the data. It's still in the cloud. You can move at your own pace. So there are various ways. For example, if you have something that needs to live on a server, we can move that to Azure so that it's still on a server, but you don't have to manage it and have the patches and the security and the refresh of hardware on your plate. Using the cloud, it's still all the same stuff that you've been using for years. It's just hosted differently, and it really does enable you to scale up, scale down. There are so many advantages to being in the cloud as opposed to having equipment on premises or your own licenses that you buy and keep and then need to update. So there's obviously a whole suite of tools within Office 365. There are authoring tools such as Word, Excel, OneNote, PowerPoint, which we're running from at the moment, obviously. There's the mail and social with Outlook in particular, and Yammer for the enterprise space. Content and intranet. So SharePoint is really the place where we help a lot of organizations bring all the information together that their stakeholders need wherever they happen to be working from. So you have a single source of truth for all company data, cuts down on email traffic, which we all could do with more of. Then we have the collaboration tools, Microsoft Teams, which we're using today, obviously. Skype for Business is still out there, but being deprecated as it's still on servers in a number of larger organizations. The analytics that I mentioned before, we have Power BI, which really helps you to extract meaning from data wherever it might live. But there are also workplace analytics and My Analytics, which report on things like you spent this much time in meetings this week and you spent this much time working out of hours. So how can you try and mitigate that, and how can you spend less time in meetings and sacrifice less of your personal time to work? And then the advanced security and compliance is a broad suite of tools that allow you to control who accesses information and make sure that you prevent leaks and information getting out there into the wild, because there's everyone is knocking on your door all the time, and people who think that cybersecurity isn't their problem just haven't been hit yet. So it's really, really important that you take steps, because if you've got an email address and an IP address, which we all do, then people are attempting to get in on every day on every basis, because that's the nature of the beast. If you've got information out there, people want to hold it for ransom or expose it, or take advantage of that. So it's a very critical piece of what we do, is helping people to understand the risk. So just the last slide, this is to give you some idea of the comparison between the Microsoft suite and what a lot of organizations are doing. So on the left-hand side, there's Google Docs, Tableau, Trello, Vimeo, WhatsApp, Zapier. All these tools are really valuable tools. They all perform a great job and they do it very well. The problem is that they're all separate. So not only do they come at an additional cost for each one of those applications, but they're a different management overhead. And there's also, every time you have a username and password, you are creating a new cybersecurity vulnerability. So the more you can condense your applications into one space, the better. So as you can see, Microsoft has an equivalent for all of those tools. So Calendly, for example, which is widely used, there's a tool called Bookings. If you get an email from me, it'll be in my signature. Book a time with me, click straight on there and it'll show you my calendar. Most people don't know that exists. The same with OneNote. Lots of people are using Evernote. The same with Zapier, or If This Then That. Power Automate is Microsoft's equivalent. So the big difference is not only in the security and the vulnerability and the management overhead, it's also in the cost. So to purchase all of those systems on the left, you're looking at somewhere around $180 per user per month. Now, not everyone's going to be using all of them, but that would be the cost if you were to buy them individually. And it's $17.20 for businesses, but it's actually $4.10 for a not-for-profit business. So plainly, there's an enormous saving to be had, and there are enormous efficiencies to be had through one place where everything integrates. And the simplest example I can give you is with Teams, for example. I go to my Outlook calendar, I create a meeting, I press Teams meeting, and it creates all the details, and then I send it. I don't need to do anything else. I don't need to go to another tool and take the details and paste it in. It's just all seamlessly integrated. Those little incremental savings of time add up to a massive return on investment when you can enable people to do what they do effectively and productively each and every day. So that's really what the Microsoft Tech for Social Impact program is about. If anyone does want to know more about it, we're very happy to have a conversation with you separately. There's lots of information out there. Dr. Google can point you in the right place. But yeah, it's out there. It's to help you be more productive. So please take advantage wherever you can. So are there any questions before we move on to the main event?
No, just thanks. So that was all encompassing.
Yeah, so there's so much there, and it's impossible to cover it in a day, let alone in 15 minutes. But at least it hopefully is a little bit of a teaser about the things that you can do to revolutionize your business without spending a great deal of money. Most of these tools are already in a subscription if you have Office 365, and you may be paying more than you need to, and that's something we can certainly help you to figure out. But yeah, there are so many tools that you can use to leverage the productivity in your business. So at this point, what I would like to, Greg, did you have something to ask?
Yeah, sorry. You put on the last column, you put Salesforce and Xero and Amazon and Azure. Can you just explain that? Why did you put that on that slide?
Yeah, sure. So for example, Salesforce is another tool that is entirely separate. Microsoft have another tool, Dynamics CRM. It's not included in your subscription for Microsoft or Office 365, but it is there as another tool that does that whole other function of CRM, which isn't anywhere else on the slide. The same thing with Xero. That's a very commonly used tool, as is MyOb and QuickBooks. Again, they're another separate subscription. They're another separate place to manage. Microsoft Dynamics 365 have Business Central, another tool called Wise, which are ERP systems. So they're accounting on steroids. They also handle inventory and manufacturing and warehousing and a whole bunch of other stuff, which you have to buy plugins for the likes of Xero or MyOb. Again, it's not included in your subscription, but it's another tool from Microsoft which seamlessly integrates into the rest of the ecosystem. And the same thing with AWS. That's another excuse me, platform that's out there in use by a lot of people. You don't get Azure included apart from that grant of $3,500 per year towards any consumption. But it's just seamlessly managed. So you can have one portal through your administration portal and handle all of those tools from Microsoft through the one place. So it's really about completing the ecosystem, but they're not included in the subscription. But good point. I hadn't thought to mention that.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. So if we don't have any other questions at this point, I would love to hand over to Paul Dunn to dazzle us all with what it means to be driven.
Well, before I dazzle, Tristan, I think what I have to do, this being my first time on Teams, I think I have to request control, but maybe I don't, because it just was on my screen, but it's not anymore. So maybe I can just press share screen, and if everybody crosses their fingers, by the way, before you cross your fingers, didn't you love that people paracetamol thing? I want to be one of them. I really do. I've been trying to think of, a phrase. We might get one as a result of our time together here. And talking about time together here, Tristan, just whilst you were speaking there, I was obviously familiar with Microsoft's values. Can you see that up on your screen there, by the way, just to check it out? Can you see it? You can, yeah. And one of the thrills was that actually being in Seattle, about 18 months ago, and dropping in to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and seeing all the great things they're doing, and then going to see Nathan Myhrvold, who was Microsoft's first chief technical officer. But I think you're right, and that's one of the reasons why I think this is so cool today, because what you see is that everything that's going on is all about leadership. And when I think of leaders, Nadella is just up there, and it was he who coined what you see on our screen right there. Our mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. Another way of saying that, perhaps with the context of today, is our mission is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to have even more impact. And that would be another way of kind of linking that in to what we're doing today. By the way, in terms of what we are doing today, we are going to be doing something great. And one of the things I do, even though this is my first Microsoft Teams, by the way, because usually I'm presenting in large groups, and I don't think that Teams is generally used for larger groups. So I'm a Zoom guy. In fact, I got a nice present from Zoom yesterday, so it's really nice. But anyway, but one of the things that I think is really interesting in terms of where we're going today in Impact Driven is to try and figure out what we can do to put impact right at the very core of what you do, whether you are and I get your point, Tristram, about the not-for-profit, whether you're a for-purpose organization, or which of course you can be without being a for-profit entity, as it were. The other thing I just want to mention for all the NFPs on the call is one of the things that we at B1G1 are, and you'll see a little bit about B1G1, is although I'm here in Singapore, that's where we're headquartered. B1G1 actually started in Australia. We are, though, a 5013C. And what that means is that all of the worthy causes, that's our name for charities, all of the worthy causes that are part of B1G1 actually get that 5013C label, if you will, by virtue of collaborating with us. And so some of you, as you go through this, might want to think, maybe B1G1 is an interesting thing to reach out with. So in terms of that, doing something great, Tristram, and integrating everything in, just as an example of that, hopefully you can see on your screen that I've got something automatically set up which says when I present a Zoom meeting or web event, by the way, I didn't have it set for Teams, right? When I present a Zoom meeting, we give 11 days of access to game-changing e-learning to kids in need in India. And by the way, I set that up in October, and I don't need to count how many Zoom meetings I'm on, but I had a look this morning, and that's resulted in nearly 16,000 days of access to e-learning to children in India. Now, the point about that, I don't want you to get off on, well, that's really cool. The point about that is it's very, very different because it's integrated into every single thing we do. It's not, let's have a charity ball, it's integrating it right into the very fabric of what business does. And so I thought, Tristram, as well, one of the things that we should do this morning, and you're going to give me a count on this later on, is we'll do something different because it's the first time on Teams. So what we'll be doing is for every person who is here, and you can count that up as a result of a great project called .com Mob in rural Australia. They work with kids, as you can see, Indigenous kids, and train them into graphic design and all of that kind of stuff so that actually they can get really productive gigs, as opposed to jobs, gigs in the internet economy. And that is a brilliant, brilliant project. So just by being here today, that has happened. You've made that happen for a kid. So with that all in mind, well done everybody. I want you to get out your notepads if you would. Would you mind getting out your notepads? Because I want you to use your notepads today in a slightly different way. So if you've got your notepads and your pens ready, if you wouldn't mind just turning them, I think that's called landscape, Tristan, would that be right? We call that landscape? I think we do. And I'd love you to do some drawing. Now, please don't try and draw what you see on your screen right now. Don't draw a C, don't draw that. But you can, by the way, I call this the C of sameness, which coincidentally I discovered just recently has an interesting acronym, which is of course SOS. But anyway, don't draw the C, but what you might want to do is just draw this ripple. Okay, so draw this kind of wavy thing and make it right across the paper as we get into what it means to be impact driven. And let's imagine a perfectly crafted iceberg. None of them look like that, but let's make it a triangle. And let's just have a little bit of it above the waves. And one of the things that I think makes a lot of sense, normally I wouldn't say entities there, Tristram, I'd say companies, but since we've got different entities here, most entities sadly are kind of operating, as it were, below the waterline. And one of the things that I'm absolutely convinced that being impact driven does, and I'll show you how you do it in just a second, is move you from standard to stand out, so that people really notice and want to belong to what it is that you are doing, whether that's a business, as in a standard business, or whether that's a charity or whatever. By the way, no need to put this up on the chat, but you might just want to make a little note. Where would you see yourselves right now in terms of whether you're, where would you see yourselves in terms of being standout or standard? Where are you? Is it like a 3, a 9, a 10? Whatever, you might want to put a mark on it, and then we may ask you that at another time to see how you went and where you are now as a result of our time together. So this is the drift, if you will. This is the path that we are going to go on, and we're going to go on it in an interesting way. So it is moving from standard, which I used to call ordinary, but I found that very difficult to alliterate. So we're going from standard, as I hope you can see, to stand out. And the real question is, well, yeah, Paul, that's obvious, but you know, how do you do that? And so I'm going to suggest this is the first one. You become standard, you go from standard to stand out because you stand for something that is bigger than yourself. And I think it was Stephen Covey way back when in 7 Habits who talked about this whole concept of North Star that we, and by the way, one of the things we've seen through the pandemic is that our people who are seriously on purpose, guess what? They're thriving as a result of this, right? Not that's wrong to say they're thriving as a result of the pandemic, but what it means is they were not frozen like so many people were. So, and I'm not trying to minimize the negative effects of all that at all, but I think one of the really interesting things is it accelerated the whole for-purpose movement, because now we understand something that's always been true, and we'll talk about it in a minute or more, and that is that we are all connected. We are seriously connected. We always have been, but now we're understanding it. And I'm going to suggest to you that that needs to be a focus in terms of how you do things from here on in. And on a run about 3 weeks ago, I was thinking, okay, so what's the action that gets you standing for something? And that was when I kind of thought, okay, it's really about being impact driven and measuring impacts. It's not, if you're, for example, a charity, with great respect, it's not about looking at how much money we raised. What it's about is how many impacts we created. That's what it's seriously about. And I think, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second. And when you become impact driven, the reality is that everything changes. For example, just imagine meeting with an accountant. You're at a networking event or something, and you meet with this person. You don't know they're an accountant, and you say to them, well, what is it that you do? And they say, oh, I'm an accountant. And if you ever notice at that point, so many people say, oh gosh, I'm desperate to go to the toilet, and stuff, and they kind of leave because it's hardly interesting many times. But contrast that with a professional service provider, let's say an accountant, and when asked, what do you do? Well, I'm an impact-driven accountant. Straight away, we want to know what that is. And what that is, of course, is that their focus is on creating great value, great impact for the people that they're privileged to serve, and hopefully along the way, doing some good things for the world as well. And so I was worried, Tristram, that was not sort of alliterating correctly, as in standard to stand out, and then there's an I. So I was trying to find an S word. About 4 days ago, I got it. And someone said, well, Paul, it's just as simple as stand up. From standard to stand out, because we stand up. And hopefully we're going to give you some ideas to do that. By the way, one of the things I can't do at this particular point, Tristan, is see the chat. I'm sure there's a way of me doing that, but I can't see it. But in any event, put on the chat, if you would, with a Y, if this is true, if this is making sense. Just go ahead, and Tristan, you can hopefully tell me that there's a fair few Ys coming in. Hopefully it is. Sorry to interrupt your drawing. We're going to get back to your drawing in just a moment. In fact, we're going to do some interesting drawing right now. I mentioned that this whole idea of impact driven and for purpose, if you will, has really accelerated through the pandemic. And you can see that on the left-hand side of your screen. The world has changed, and the way that you can read it as well as I can. But what I want you to do is just draw another pyramid. Don't use the same pyramid that you used last time, another little pyramid here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some things on the left-hand side as you're looking at it, on the left-hand side of the pyramid, which illustrate where we were. In other words, like 18 months ago, when we would probably not be having this conversation, okay? Where we were. And then we're going to have a look at where we are. And it's not where we are moving to. Notice that it's where we are, my considered view of that. So let's have a look. So please write some things on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. The first one is very simple, that it's not about me. It's not about you anymore. It never was. It was always about us. So there's this move from me to we that is critically important. As I said earlier on, now as a result of the pandemic, we understand something really cool. And we're going to talk about it a little more later on. and that is that we really are all connected. And by the way, the other thing that's really interesting in the pandemic is now one of our greatest desires is to belong to something. So if you're writing down key words, you might want to write down connection and belong. They are crucial. So question is, how do you do that? Well, this happens very, very quickly. So let's just go through and write some of these things down, and then we'll come back and have a look at them. So inputs to outcomes, value to values, money to meaning, what to why. You mentioned my friend Simon Sinek before. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then this whole one at the top, which tends to confuse a lot of people, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So what is inputs to outcomes? Yeah, go ahead.
Just before you carry on, I just wanted to let you know we've got a ton of yeses. You haven't taken break for me to tell you, but yes, we do.
Oh, good. You can come again. If you put a yes in there, you can. Actually, if you put a yes in there, we might double the number of kids. Oh, maybe, yeah, we will. Okay, if you put a yes in there. But that's conditional, isn't it? I shouldn't do that. But anyway, so let's have a look at the inputs to the outcomes. What does that really mean? What it really means is, you know, one of the if we're in business, for example, and I'm trying to separate that for the minute from charities, and I really shouldn't, because they really are the same thing. So, but in business, it's so easy to fall in love with what we do. It's so easy to do that, as opposed to falling in love with the outcomes that we produce for the people we're privileged to serve. And it's no longer about inputs. It never was, but now we've got to be talking frequently about the outcomes. Like, for example, you know, here I am on a Zoom meeting and 11 kids are getting access to life-changing education. Or every time I send an email, and this is not just me, these are people who are all part of B1G1, somebody somewhere gets access to life-saving water. It is all about value. Sorry, it used to be all about value. The value we provide, no more. It's all about, that value is important, of course, but values are so much more important. What you stand for. That's one of the most exciting things, I think, about, you know, well, we'll talk about how this plays out in just a minute. Money to meaning is kind of interesting. If you're in the kind of charity sector, you've seen that. You've seen what happened. You know, maybe it started, I think it started in 2008 when we went through that so-called global financial crisis. And what happened is, you know, people are getting paid a lot. By the way, pre-2008, you may remember we could go to seminars called Greed is Good. You remember we could do that? Well, that has shifted. You can't do that anymore, right? And so what's happening is you see a lot of well-paid people, and appropriately well-paid, but you're seeing this more and more, which is why there are so many people now starting their own businesses, because here they are, you know, in corporate and they're getting paid well, but you know, and I know, because you know the stats in terms of the enterprises that are being created, you know, they put their head on the pillow and before their eyes close, they ask themselves, is that all there is? And the reality is it's not all there is. And so we are seeing this kind of Viktor Frankl, you know, search for meaning. And that's why there's so much lift, for example, in volunteerism and all of those sorts of things. Coupled with inputs to outcomes, Tristram, is this whole shift from what to why. And you know, my friend Simon Sinek in 2009 in that great TED talk, you know, was the you know, one of the people that articulated that, and also in Start With Why, the book and everything else. By the way, don't go read the book. He's okay if I say that, by the way. Just watch the TED talk. It's so much better. 48 million people have watched it. So you know, what that means is, if, for example, you're in business, what those things mean is that if I go to your website, take a guess at what I typically see. What I typically see is what you do. But what I really want to see is why you do it. And I want to see that right up front. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. And when you are game to do it, some really fascinating things start to happen. So let's go to this top one really, really quickly, because a lot of people go, well, should I not be concerned about profit? Should I be concerned with purpose, right? Well, that's not what it's saying. So let's just get a look at what it's saying by looking in the commercial sector, if you can call it that just for the moment, although this business would call itself an on-purpose business. And this is one in the US. It's called Best Buy. Think Harvey Norman on steroids, as a for example. It's what they do. And that's run by a very interesting lady. Her name is Corey Barry. And I love how she articulates this whole thing around purpose. And I'm going to show you a couple of things on that. She says the purpose of this company is not to make money. Now, but read the second sentence. It's imperative to make money, but that's not our purpose. And look at what she says. It's kind of like a crib from Microsoft almost. Our purpose is to enrich lives through technology. It's bigger than themselves. And talking of bigger, why don't we go to this guy? This is the CEO of BlackRock. And BlackRock, just so that you know, and I'm sure you know actually, is the largest company in the world in terms of funds under management. So they kind of take our funds, well, they don't take them, they suggest we put our funds with them so they can invest in nice enterprises and then give you a return. And Larry here, he's just a superstar of impact driven, and in 2018 he did this amazing letter to the stock exchange in America, and then keeps following it up. And I'm going to show you a little piece from his latest one. In any event, just to give you an idea of size, I read something about 3 months ago which said every day $6 trillion flows through BlackRock. And have a look at what he said. He says, purpose is not a mere tagline or a marketing campaign. It is your fundamental reason for being. Take a look at that. What it does, what you do every day to create value for stakeholders. And then he says, I love this line, purpose is not the sole pursuit of profits, but it is the animating force for achieving them. And that's just such a cool idea. Because all of the research, whether we go to all the Harvard Business Review articles or whatever place you want to go and find out what happens when people become purpose or impact driven, answer, greater purpose, greater profit. That's what happens. And so if you wanted to take a couple of notes from this, I'd love you to take these notes. Impact powers income. So the more you are talking about the impact, and notice when I said earlier on about what happens on, when, for example, when I do Zoom or whatever, and I'll show you some more examples of it in a minute. I didn't say, a percentage of our profits go. I was very specific about the impact that's being created, and that's what we need to be. So impact powers income and purpose powers profit. So that seems like a kind of a good thing. So with that in mind, let me, Tristram, in some of the things he sent out to you, he kindly mentioned one of the things that is on that CV, and it's not people paracetamol, and I so wish it was. But anyway, what it actually says is, I'm going to find something. I really am. I'm not sure what it is. Anyway, oh dear. Anyway, excuse me. Let's just go into this a little further, because as I was saying, Tristan, one of the things you said about me was, Paul's done 4 TEDx talks and all of that kind of stuff. And one of the great things about doing TED Talks is that you get to meet with other people who do TED Talks, which is really cool. And here's one of the people, well, in a minute, I'm going to show you one of the people actually that I met with. But before I do that, let me make sure you understand what's going on that diagram. When I look at the left-hand side of that diagram, everything is transactional. That's the only word I can come up with to describe it. When I look at the right-hand side of that diagram, what the first word that comes to mind for me when I look at that is humanity. That's what comes to mind for me. But in terms of, humanity can sometimes be a bit too broad. So another word that comes up for me is connection. And I asked you before to write down a couple of things like connection and belonging. and so on. So let's have a look at connection. And people sometimes say, well, Paul, who's that connecting to? Is that, connecting to our donors? Is that connecting to, yes. But that's not what we mean by connection. What I mean by connection is this: connection to you. Connection to you. Really, really deeply to you. Because if you think about it, how can you connect if you're not connected to you? I mean, it's a broken connection, right? So connection to you is really important. And then, of course, connection to your family, connection to your team, crucial stuff. Then connection to your clients, in that order, I would suggest to you. Then connection to your community. And then as a result of that, connection to our world. And my contention is that impact driven lets you do that. So let me get back to what I was going to say about TED. And introduce you to Brene Brown. I'm sure many of you have seen Brene's work. She's extraordinary, and she's a ball of fun to be with, as you would expect if you've seen some of her work. I think one of the most interesting things that she talked about was in her very first TEDx talk in Houston. And she didn't know that it was going to be watched worldwide. And she has a funny story to tell about that. But and she is, she's a humorous person. And there we were laughing along with her. And then at about the 6-minute point, she talked about something that makes us all pause. And she talked about the explosion in teenage kids suiciding, particularly male teenage kids. And it was this moment of like that. And then she said this. She said, and what my research has uncovered, she says, is connection is why we're here. It's something you might want to put up on the wall. Connection is why we're here. And then she added to that, it's what gives meaning and purpose to our lives. So this is why this whole purpose thing is so important, right? Because you can flip it around. You can say, well, connection leads to meaning and purpose, or you could also say that meaning and purpose leads to connection. And so all of those things are really, really interrelated. Now, Tristan, what I'm doing here is looking at my watch, and I realize that I need to, there's a couple of slides that I'd love to show you, but I'm going to miss them. I'm going to miss these slides for now, and so that you've got time for the breakout rooms. By the way, my pet name for breakout rooms, Zoom breakout rooms anyway, but I'm sure it's true in Teams, I don't call them breakout rooms, I call them breakthrough rooms, because that's where the breakthroughs occur, where we are, we are looking at not the wisdom of one, as we are in this case, but the wisdom of many, and that's so crucial to get. So let me skip through the wonder of Keynote on the Mac. I'd so love to show you these 3 slides, but well, I'm going to show them to you, Kristen. Okay, I'll show you these 3 slides. I'm going to do it very quickly. Normally I take at least half an hour for this, but I just want to show you what happens from a company point of view when you are impact driven. So let's have a look at this. Here are some shoes and some sneakers, and clearly I don't need sneakers because I haven't traveled since March the 12th. The year before that, I did 600,000 kilometers in the air, but 0 now. So I clearly don't need any sneakers. But anyway, I was getting, Facebook tracks you, or at least it did until the recent update on the Mac. But anyway, and so I ordered some, some runners, because I run every day. About 6 months ago, I ordered these runners, as some Mizuno runners, and obviously, Facebook got the Pixel or something, or whatever it is they get, and all of a sudden I start seeing ads for Cariuma, and I didn't know who the hell Cariuma was. And I get ad after ad, and then finally, about 8 weeks ago, okay, I'm going to click on the ad, and this is what I saw. Now, bear in mind, I don't need sneakers. I don't, right? So then I look and I go, oh, Vogue, Fast Company, Forbes. Oh my goodness, maybe owning a pair of those sneakers might elevate my status in life or something. And then I go to the next page and I see that this is an impact-driven company. Watch. get a pair of sneakers, plant 2 trees. Now, some may say, oh, this is the consumer economy. No, stay with me, stay with me. This is one of the most brilliant examples I've seen of impact. And they amplify it in a really, really brilliant way. Now, why would I be showing it to you as, for example, a charity? Because you can link to companies that do things like this and embed it in what they do. Now, of course, a really simple way of doing that is to, apply to become a charity in B1G1, right? But anyway, so, I go, oh my gosh, look at that, all of a sudden plant 2 trees. So I love to plant 2 trees. So guess what? I ordered the Cariuma sneakers. 3 days later, I'm not kidding you, 3 days later, this box arrives. Now, I am an Apple fanboy, right? And I film opening Apple products because it's just like the coolest thing. But I didn't film this, but I should have done, because they out Apple. So I open the box, bang, straight away, I see the impact. Good looking, crazy comfort, constant. And I see it in a nice way. We're here to show you a good time, so put us on and take us out. And then I see this lovely, lovely little diagram down here about handmade for happy feet and everything else. Now, by this time, of course, I've taken the shoes out. Let me show you the shoes. They are just the best shoes. This program is brought to you by Cariuma. The best shoes I have ever worn. And by the way, I'm happy to give you a referral. Let me tell you why I'm happy to give you a referral. Because when you go on the referral thing, together we plant 30 trees. Seriously, that's what happens. That's an impact-driven company right there. And then, by the way, it gets even better, because right on the bottom of the box, I get this. This is the belonging piece. I get this little envelope, and the flap there is not a flap. It's like a cutout flap. And there's my name on this thing. That's belonging. And I open it up. Thanks for making the planet greener with us. When you purchased, you also planted 2 trees in the Brazilian rainforest. Obrigado. And I'm sure most of you know your Portuguese, and that stands for thank you. And I am now kind of wedded to this company. Seriously, if you would like me to refer you, just pop in the chat Cariuma or something that looks like it, and Tristram will probably break the privacy rules or something, and we'll find out how we can refer you. You will love it. And what this gets back to is these 3 crucial points, and I just want to amplify these before we finish. So the 3 crucial points are connection. The second thing is clarity. We need to be clear as to what the impacts are. And of course, that leads to why it is we do things. And just quickly, Tristan, if we go back to that little diagram before, the question is, okay, Paul, I get it. I get the impact leads to connection, which leads to belonging and so on. The question is how? How? And the answer, there's several answers. One of them is to remember this whole impact-driven thing. But I think that one of the things that we are doing just quickly at B1G1 is literally making it so easy for people to do that. And let me show you what happens when you are impact-driven. This is, like Tristram, a B1G1 member. He's in Sydney. His name is Brody Lee. He trains coaches, and he is seriously good, seriously good. And when Brody joined us in B1G in October, the only phrase he was using to me was impact. It was the only phrase he's using. And so if I go to Brody's website, you can see right there, just above his head, there is a tab called impact, right? Now, I wish it was right next to home, because it would get clicked even more. But anyway, it's above his head. So let's have a look at what happens when I click it. Watch this. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but I just want you to see what if every time we do business, something great happens in the world. Here's our mission. This is his mission. We're going to do this many this many this many. And the crucial word there is so that we can. So that we can what? So that we can do the things you see on the left-hand side. And then why on earth would we be impact driven? Because what we do says who we are. And let's measure it. So here are the total impacts. This is all part of B1G1, by the way. So here are the total impacts right across the Sustainable Development Goals that are really part of this whole impact-driven thing. And then we go down and we look at the map. And traditionally, of course, in quote-unquote charity thing, it would be, oh, you gave $10 here, $3 here. No. Look at how it's reported. It's reported in impacts. And when people see that, it's like, oh my God. And they want to be a part of that because secretly we all want to belong, we all want to connect, and we all want to make an impact whilst we're here. Now there's you know, so many other examples of that particular example, Tristram, and I won't go through all of them, but let me just go to this one. We talked before about what happens on web events and stuff like that. So here's a guy who does a lot on LinkedIn, and you know him as well. This is Adam Houlihan, and he does some interesting things with linking B1G1 into his web events. And look at how he links the customers back in. Thanks for registering for the event, and double thank you if you joined us live. We've honored our commitment to provide a day's education to a child in need through our partnership. And because of you, look at that, 759 children are a little happier today, as I am. And so you're seeing all these B1G1 members around the place saying, you know, when you do business with us, something great happens in the world. And you can do all of these sorts of things that you're seeing up on your screen. Now, Tristram, I don't want to spend any time talking about B1G1 other than, I was trying to go to the particular place which I can't go, other than to say that, let me just stop that just for a second. And Tristram, what I'll do is, I'm not sure how I stop my share, but let me stop my share. I think I press stop share. Did I just do that? Okay.
Nailed it.
So can I just say, in the shortest time ever, you know, thank you for letting me do that. And hopefully what it's left you with is some ideas as to whether, you know, how in business we can do this, and how in the NFP or for purpose community, or indeed in social enterprise. And by the way, just so you know, my position on social enterprise, the Singapore government 8 years ago came to B1G1 offices in one of the universities here, and they were doing a study, and they said, Mr. Dunn, can we ask you, because the government wants to know whether we should have like tax breaks or some way of supporting social enterprises. And I said, well, you know, there's a possibility, but I don't think you should. And they go, what? You're the only person who's ever said that to us. Why would you say no? And I said, because where I come from, this is so powerful that before, you know, the century is out, actually, by what I said was by 2030, I think every business will be a social impact business. I really do. This is a movement that is just going really, really crazy. So, Tristram, thank you for having me here. I hope it's been valuable, and I hope it's generated some interesting discussions for the breakthrough rooms. So thank you for making it all possible.
Thank you, Paul. And yeah, that was a whistle-stop tour through a presentation that usually takes quite a bit longer. And I appreciate you managing to cram it in. You must be a little out of breath. I am just watching. So, but yeah, that was a fantastic recap of what it means to be impact-driven, and to align everything you do with the impacts, and to really communicate that. That's the key thing. If people don't know you're doing it, then they can't support you in that venture. So really appreciate that. We are, as you say, members of B1G1, and we contribute every time we do projects to make sure that we're providing clean drinking water to people around the world and planting trees. And we're up to about 828,000 impacts at the moment. And our big, hairy, audacious goal for our business is not about money in the bank. It's not about the size of business. It's about creating 1 billion impacts, which is actually very achievable on the basis that we can, for $1 through the right programs, we can actually make a difference of hundreds of days of clean drinking water for people who desperately need it. So
exactly.
And one of the things that we're also going to be doing is encouraging other customers, commercial organizations that we're doing business with, to join B1G1, to make sure that everyone we touch is invigorated to make a difference and make an impact through their commercial outcomes. So thanks once again, Paul. Really appreciate that. We've got a limited time to run the breakout rooms, but we've also got a smallish number of people compared to what we were expecting to arrive today, which often happens. People get busy during the day. So what I'm going to do now is just allocate everyone to the breakout rooms that they've expressed an interest in. It is a bit of a process, unlike Zoom, which, you know, Paul's such a a guru on, but it takes a little longer for us to put everyone into the breakout rooms because I can't pre-allocate because you'll all disappear midway through the presentation. So I have to do it now one by one. So the first,
much better breakthrough rooms.
so I'll start assigning you now, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes or so just to wrap up.
Super good, super good.
Okay, so I'll assign now to, right, so Brett and his crew are in one room. So now we've got the next room with Nigel, so assign that one. And then we have we've had a couple of people who were going to be in the VR room not show, unfortunately, but I'll put those of you who are there into the room now.
Could you put me in that room too, Tristan, please? Because VR plays a part in what we do too. So
awesome, shall do. And right, lucky last, Melissa and Joe, and I might be in that room as well, Manish, and I'm going to go and join one of the other ones. So rooms. You'll all disappear in a moment. Which one do we get?
Like when the
whoops.
Just taking a moment, but it will happen any second now that you'll move. There you go. So Natasha, I'll move you into the VR room as well. That's where I'm going to go. Okay. But I've got to, so it's not quite how I thought it worked. We could actually pre-allocate, but never mind. Yeah. So you should move in there at the moment. Then I've got to go to the meeting, to the rooms, so I can record. I don't know how to do that though. Do you know how to do that?
Oh, I've been recording the whole session.
Yeah, but we need to record the breakout rooms. I'm not sure how to do that. I wish Manish hadn't disappeared at this particular moment.
In the
against you. The last part of our experiences is really about practicing doing something different. So once you've had the first experience where you've had maybe discrimination towards you, you can actually go back into the experience and choose a different route, choose a different character, and see if there's a way that you can shift the
example of that comes from the world that I occupied when I was a master, and that was helping researchers actually engage with donors and the community. Now that may seem pretty self-evident and obvious, but in fact my experience that it wasn't. People were trained to communicate and frame ideas in a particular way, you know, around science, which didn't always play out to a
I started recording by entering all the rooms.
approach. And yeah, I guess it's an area that so I was surprised. I was really pleased with the uptake and the outcomes in terms of people being able to, people working in research and then moving into a sort of healthcare area, better understand engagement. Now that, what that
revenue itself, I really hope they don't ask that question.
Your business model, how do you remain meaningful within that environment? Looking at key friends, so you know, I guess bringing it back to this event today, you know, are you able to leverage cheaper, more efficient, more effective technology to help you drive the outcomes that you need to do? Is the regulatory environment changing? So, for instance, if that is spectacular, how are you able to manage through those? What's going on from a society or socioeconomic? And just making sure that you and your role or your business is focused. And then from a broader perspective, what's going on at an economic?
Because I need that moment. Let's get into it first, and then you can build trust. And then that's what we did. So I've now recruited 2, and I've been coming up to a 3rd for them now. But that's only through adding resources, not through rehiring.
Yeah, right, fantastic. Yeah, so I fill in the back end of that. So once you've got that team, it's working together better, and are really focusing on that people leadership space around actually the front line.
Yeah,
because I put you into the breakout.
So Lance, Joe, what's your last name?
Trentini. T-R-E-N-T-I-N-I.
No, my computer was shut down. Yeah.
We'll connect.
Great, connect.
Tristram, you're muted. Are you talking? No.
I don't know what he's Hi guys, now I was just jumping through the meeting room because we haven't run these before. We're just making sure that all the recordings are working in each of the rooms, and we're just monitoring how everything's going. And
we're going to it's just a catch up. If we had coffee or wine, we would. That's what we would have. So
we wouldn't be leaving the room. So.
haven't talked a thing about hats or coaching or anything.
Just basically said, you do what I don't, and we love to prefer work.
Yeah.
That's a really, and she said that she's an she calls herself the anti-recruiter, and what I do is what she finds unusual in the industry, and I think that that's probably across.
It's the right way to do it. It's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's a little bit longer. Like for example, the meeting I came out, I was late for, and I apologise, Tristram. I apologise. I had a last minute meeting. I had to catch up with the client. I've been looking for a month to fill in a role, and we still just haven't found the right person. And they were kind of one way or the other about one person that I sent through to an interview. And I went and had a meeting with them today and convinced them not to take this person, even though it would have been easy for me to take their fee. I said, don't take this person. He's happy where he is. Don't take him out of a role when you're not 100%. Let's leave him there. Let's keep looking. And they were more than happy to extend their search time because they knew that I was going to do the right thing for them in the end. So, you know, that's kind of what I do. It's hard to get people to understand it though.
I struggle with that as well, because there are people that they'll say, yes, we're going to take them. And I'll actually say to them, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah. Anyway, I just had to say that, look, I just don't think he's the right person for you, and he's really happy where he is. Let's just leave him where he is, because he's new to Australia as well. So, you know, establishing that community is really hard.
Right, Joe, we are going to catch up. Yeah. It'll obviously take a lot longer.
Awesome. Well, if it's over wine, I expect an invitation.
Can we just go to Fat Elephant or something? Because that was a bomb.
Yeah. Okay. Done.
Still talking about that.
Done. All right. Well, we'll do that again very soon. I'm just going to jump into the other breakout room, see how they're going, and then we'll try and figure out how to resume all the meetings together. So. Thank you. I'll see you shortly.
Can you jump into mine, because they can't hear me and I can't hear them.
He's muted, but he can still hear us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've always been curious.
You might need to.
So there's so many benefits that can help.
You just hit resume.
Yeah, just remove all the breakout rooms, then they will come to the main one. Idea of disabilities, and I mean, there's so many areas. We've already informed them. So we're going to do that.
Are you certain about that? That if we just fill the breakout rooms?
Yeah, they all go there.
They definitely will.
What is the name? Can you remind me again, either Leonie or Christine? What is the name of the company right now?
Equal reality. Yeah. We'll put the details up.
I would call it impactful reality if it was me.
They do have, they have one scenario, which the first one I ever did, you get taken up in an elevator, and remember, Leonie, I literally screamed because you feel like you're pushing to the edge. And they kept saying, you're still in the same place, but in my head, I had been transported up an elevator and I was walking off a building, and I'm so petrified of heights.
So that's a great scenario. That's one. It's actually done by another Brisbane company. They're called Toast VR, and it's called Rick's Plank. And if you're ever in any doubt that VR does actually have an impact on your brain and your perception, then you walk out on the plank at the top of And I've actually had people who put the goggles on and they go into it and they say, and I've heard them talking to themselves saying, I'm in a room, I'm in a room, I'm in a room, because they're not. So it can be really
freak out at that. But that's the point, right? It is so impactful, and to bring that to diversity and all of those sorts of things, and to have that same level of impact is really profound. So, so congratulations on what you're doing. It's super stuff. Super.
Just checking in, everybody, because we have hit just over the allotted time, and I'm sure we could carry on for hours. But I was going to bring everyone back and then pick up any conversations that we want to afterwards, and happy to broker introductions, etc. Are you guys happy to go back into the main room shortly?
Sure.
Okay, let me just get to the next room.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Leonie, for that presentation.
Oh.
Nobody here?
Nobody here. They must have come out of that room.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I hear. Their pathway, their career progress prepares them for the technical side of what they do, but not the broader side of things.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. We have gone over time a little bit. There's been some great discussions going on. Are you happy for us to resume? And if we want to foster any introductions afterwards to continue the conversation, very happy to do so, but just want to bring everyone back in, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, give me a moment.
Nigel, can we chat later perhaps?
Absolutely delighted to, yeah. Do you...
To understand those sorts of elements when it comes to people, and it's really powerful. So
I've actually just started working with another person who uses disc profiling. So
just sorry to interrupt, just letting you know we're going to be putting you back into the main room in a sec.
Right. I'll stop talking about you then.
Yeah, we'll start being nice.
In the HR department over here.
Can we shut down any? What's going on there?
Tristram. You're muted. I think you're muted, Tristram. I can see your mouth moving, but
You're right. I have myself on mute. I've been jumping from room to room, so
yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to make sure.
Just go to the main room.
Yeah, hang on. Let me go to the main room. I don't know quite where that is because I've killed the breakout rooms. So I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. Just bear with us a second. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out where everyone is. Yes, I think I need to. I don't know quite what to do there to bring everyone in. Sorry, this is the first time we've done this with breakout rooms in this event, so
all good, mate.
Close. Yeah, these are the other rooms. Just close room, see if that brings everyone back.
I think just go to the participants.
Doesn't look like it. Let's go. Okay, so we're slowly all coming back. So
well done, Tristram.
I did skip through the various breakout rooms. There was some great conversation going on, and it was a shame to bring it all back to the main room. But yeah, hopefully there are conversations to be continued after this. I know I'd like to rejoin them all. So yeah, anyone who wants to continue the conversation and needs an introduction fostered, then let me know and I'll happily facilitate it. So look, just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone for participating. I think it's been, you know, an excellent inaugural session. We had a few little technical teething issues to overcome at the 11th hour and the 12th hour and the 13th hour, but, you know, we got through. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating, and I'll follow up with you all individually to see how you went with it. So
that's awesome.
Well done, Tristram and the
Thank
team.
you.
Yeah.
Well done, Tristram.
Thanks,
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.